Hey, good afternoon. My name is Reverend Roosevelt Simmons Jr., and this is my wife.
Hi, I'm Shannon.
And we are extremely excited to be a part of the 2020 Refocus Family Conference this afternoon. Want to make sure we extend our heartfelt thank you to Pastor Carlos Kelly and to Lady Kelly, along with the Beulah Land Bible Church for the invitation. We have been given the task this afternoon to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our heart, and that is simply this: building a successful blended family. You might ask why that is so important, and that's because it's not like a traditional family, but with a blended family, you are simply taking two different households, bringing them together, and asking them to operate as one unit. And so, before we dive in, we felt it would be necessary to give you just a little bit of the backstory of Shannon and myself so that you'll understand why we are so passionate about building successful blended families and helping others in that same regard.
So, Roosevelt and I, we both come from a blended family background. Roosevelt, his father was married before, and they had him and his wife, they had five children together. His father later divorced and married his mom,
Mhm.
and they have four children together.
Right.
And this is something that I didn't know when we first got married because it was something that they didn't really talk about. And then I have a blended family on both sides. So my mom and dad, they were teenage parents and they did not choose to get married. My mom married someone and they had my little sister Julia. And then my father, he's been married twice and he has five children by three women, I think. One, two, four women. So I am the oldest of both sets of kids. So we not only have a blended background, but we also blended a family ourselves.
Yeah, so Shannon and I have been blessed to be married 20 years, a little bit over 20 years, because we got married March 10th, 2000. And right before we got married, I have two older children, daughter Jayla and an older son, Carson, and we got married. And so for us, we have something that's pretty unique when it comes to the blended family space. We're actually a first marriage blended family. And so while we do both come from a blended family background, when we got married in March, we actually brought together a family and we became a blended family. And so you can imagine that there are going to be a number of different challenges that you're going to face, whether it's working, whether it's becoming, as Shannon did, became a stepmom and mom in the first year of marriage. There are a number of different challenges that you're going to experience.
Right. And so blended family is not just my life, it's my ministry. I actually started working with for an organization called Family Life back in 2012. And later I transitioned to another role on the blended family team. So I worked for this young man right here. His name is Ron Deal, and he's an author, he's a therapist and speaker. And all of these books that you see on the screen, he's written all of these books. And the series is called The Smart Step Family. And so there is a way to blend your family. And I'm learning how to do it the smart way. And like I've told people before, I get my therapy for free.
Yeah.
And so right now, that's what I do. I learned from that guy right there, and I help other churches even start blended family ministry. So it's not just my life, but it's what I do.
Yeah, and when you think about blended families, I think it's important that we begin at the beginning. Because when you think about blended families, one of the first blended families that you see is actually in the Bible. It's Abram and Sarah over in Genesis chapter 16, verse 1 through 6, where Sarah was beyond childbearing years, but God had promised them an heir. And at that particular point in time, they came together, Abram and Sarah, and decided that, well, actually, Sarah said to him, go into my handmaiden Hagar. And so thus you have a blended family. But then not only that, if you go to the New Testament, we see where Mary, Joseph, and Jesus over in Matthew chapter 1, verse 18 through 21, they are a blended family themselves. And so, you may think you read these stories, and there are a number of other stories in the Bible about blended families, but you read these stories and it doesn't jump out at you. But the reality is that our Savior Jesus Christ, he was a part of a blended family as well.
Yeah, we don't think about Joseph being a
Yeah.
stepfather. but he was.
Hmm.
He had a hard position to
Definitely.
walk in. How can you be the stepfather to the Son of God, right?
Exactly.
To the Messiah.
Right.
So every blended family doesn't enter that journey and that family the same way. We all come from different backgrounds. So um, you could be coming from being a single parent, and now your former spouse or partner, they're now married, and now you have to share your child with someone else. Um, Another step parent. You could be someone that marries someone
Hmm.
with kids, and now you become a step parent. It could be that your children, you're a grandparent, and your children now are they're dating, engaged, or married to someone with kids. It could be you're a bio parent and you're
Hmm.
joining with someone who doesn't have kids, or maybe your parent got a divorce, or maybe one of your parents passed away, and now the remaining parent they're remarrying. They could be older, and you are an adult stepchild.
Yep.
You don't think you're in a blended family because you think, oh, that's dad's wife, or oh, that's my mama husband,
Hmm.
right? But you are in a blended family. And what happens is that the only way to enter into this journey and be a successful blended family is to do it with humility.
Yeah, that's true. And I love what you said, Shannon, that building a successful blended family or entering in this space, it's a journey. And I think oftentimes people forget that it is a journey. It's not a sprint, it is a marathon. And so it is a journey that you're on. And in order for you to build it the right way, as you said, it takes humility. And so beyond that, we have to look at where do all of us find equality? And that is when we meet at the cross, because at the foot of the cross, all of us are equal. Although we all have our own struggles, you have yours, I have mine, other people have theirs.
Mhm.
In light of the cross, it literally puts everything in proper perspective when we meet at the cross.
Right. So don't think that because you are the bio, you have all rights, you
Hmm.
have all authority and that sort of thing. But you have to come through this blended family journey through humility. And the best way I would say do that is to focus on this scripture in Philippians 2, where it says, "Do nothing out
Hmm.
of selfish
That's a good
ambition
one.
um, or conceit,
Hmm.
but in humility, consider others as more important than yourselves." And so when you think about everyone else in your blended family, if you put their needs and what they may be going through before yours, you really do make room
Mm.
for God to help you make those bonds that you really want to make.
Like that.
You can't be selfish going into a blended family. One thing I would like to share is this story of, I grew up in a household where we got whoopings. And so I also grew up in a time where it was kind of old school,
Hmm.
and so anybody could get into your
Yep.
tail, and so I was just taught you respect all adults. So I dare not come into my mother's home, even when she was married to my stepdad. I dare not say, "You're not my daddy. I can't.
Mm.
You can't tell me what to do." I'd probably get hit in the mouth by somebody,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? But you can't come in and think as a step parent. I couldn't come in and think, well, your kids just need to be respectful, and I'm just
Mm.
not putting up with all that. You have to be able to put up some boundaries. If you do have a stepson or a stepchild, stepdaughter that is being disrespectful, as a step parent, you do have to put up some boundaries, but you're not going to be able to treat that child like you would
Hmm.
treat your bio kid,
Right. Right.
because I'm gonna get into detail of mine. But when it comes to discipline, it means I need to set aside and say, you know what, he's the biological father, he needs to handle that discipline, right? So you don't be you're not supposed to be a doormat, but you do have to walk in humility
Mm.
and be able to talk with your spouse about any issues as it relates to discipline the children and
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Shannon, when we think about this journey that, we're talking to others about being on, it's the same journey that you and I are on. And the reality is that on your way to becoming a successful or building a successful blended family, the reality is that you need to take a few rest stops along the way. And so we want to give you something very practical, because we can talk biblical and that's great. We want that, but we want to give you something very practical that you can take home with you, you can write down. And so the first rest stop that we need to look at is the rest stop of Jesus Christ. Here it is. You must be secure in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And there are a couple of points I want to point out. The number one thing I want to talk about is the fact that your salvation is a gift. Here it is. She and I, you and your spouse, you can't do any of that without Jesus Christ. Let me say that again. None of this is possible without Jesus Christ. The Bible talks about in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8 through 9, it talks about how our salvation is a gift and that it didn't come because of anything we did, but it is a gift that God gave us through his son, Jesus Christ. So not only do we need to understand that your salvation is a gift, but secondly, your shame is gone. And this is something that needs to be discussed in a great deal of detail, because people come into the blended family space in a number of different ways. They come through death. You can become a blended family through divorce. And then you can come, and Shannon will touch on this a little bit later, through an unwed pregnancy, or like we like to say, through disobedience. And sometimes you may get the feeling that because our family structure is not the traditional family structure, or whatever the case may be, there's a great deal of shame. But the Bible tells us, and I want to read this out of Romans chapter 8, verse 1. It says, there is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Regardless of how you came in, if you've given your life to Jesus Christ, there is no shame. You're no longer in a place where you ought to be bashful about where you are. And the third thing in this rest stop is that your strength is in God. Wow, that's wonderful to know that as you are on this journey, that the number one rest stop is understanding that your relationship with Jesus Christ is vitally important, and it is at the core of you building a successful blended family.
Right. And as you're on this journey, we're all trying to get to that point where we're successful in how we blend.
Mhm.
You got to take some time to, rest.
Yeah, yeah.
Take a moment and kind of regroup. If you and I we're on a long road trip, we got to
Mhm.
stop every now and then and
Mm.
regroup.
Right.
We have to get some rest, get something to drink, go to the restroom, and all of that. So you not only have to be secure in your salvation, but you got to settle down your expectations
Mm.
as it relates to your family. You can't go into your blended family thinking that it's going to be like your nuclear family.
Mm. Wow.
If you were a single mom and you got married and you're thinking, okay, now I have a daddy for my kids and we're going to be just
Mm.
fine. It's going to have a perfect little house with a picket fence. No, you need to settle down your expectations because you're going to have challenges that nuclear families don't
Mhm.
necessarily have. So on average, it takes about 5 to 7 years for a blended family to feel like a family. You're not going to be able to just come in and, oh, everybody's going to sing kumbaya, we're holding
Mhm.
hands, and
Mhm.
everybody's good. You also need to acknowledge the process of grief and loss that is
Right.
associated with
Right.
blending a
Right.
family. Like Roosevelt said, you entered the journey either through a death of a spouse,
Mhm.
a divorce, or an unwed pregnancy.
Mhm.
And so there is some grief and loss associated with all of those things because maybe the children involved, they really want mommy and daddy to get back together again.
Mm.
Or maybe the children involved, they really miss their mom or their dad who's passed away and they think it's not loyal to
Mhm.
even love a new parent.
Right.
So there's loss and grief with that. The other thing is don't let the term step describe your relationship. It only defines it. And when you define something, you just give a general illustration of it, a general term of using it, right?
Mhm.
So, my stepmom, I love her dearly. I love both my stepmoms actually, because I have two. But when I'm talking to people and I'm introducing them, this is my stepmom. I'm just telling you who they are to me. But if I describe my relationship is that these women, I love them. they have influenced me in so many ways as women, as mothers, as stepmoms, all of those things. So don't get tripped up on the step part.
Mm,
Reclaim that.
mm.
Reclaim what that means in your family. It doesn't have to mean the wicked stepmother or the stepdaddy that is up to no good.
Yeah, yeah.
So reclaim that, but settle down your expectations. Let the children in the family also set the pace of the relationship.
That's good.
One thing I did coming in is I try to make it easy for everybody in my step family, and I think I kind of scared the biological moms and the step
Yeah.
kids because I learned all this stuff and I was trying to apply it, but I have to let the children set the pace. When they reach out, then I'm there
Hmm.
to reach back. But if they're trying to be closed off, I need to be gentle and I need to be patient and let them set that pace.
So it's interesting that we've covered two major rest stops. The first one was talking about being secure in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And that second one, I really love how you elaborated on the fact that we need to settle down our expectations about your family. But
Mhm.
this third one, I think, is very key as well, love. And that is the rest stop of sowing into your marriage or your future marriage. And that is very vital. The Bible tells us in Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 through 10, it talks about whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power. And here's why sometimes that can be difficult because, it's difficult because you've got the balance between this new marriage and you've got these children. And so sometimes step couples are forced to negotiate, their partnerships while solidifying their romance and relationship. And like I
Mhm.
said, that can be very difficult. So
Mhm.
how do you do it? Number one, take the risk to love and to be loved, to know and to be
Mhm.
known. And while that may seem easier said than done, the truth is that is possible, but you have to be very intentional about sowing into your marriage. And the other thing is, just from a practical standpoint, well, how do I do that, Roosevelt? Because that sounds great. Well, I'm glad you asked. You need to have date nights. You need to have go to marriage conferences or go to some marriage seminars or read some books. You have to be very intentional. And here's what Shannon and I have discovered in our own marriage, because while we're having this conversation, our marriage isn't perfect. We've
Mhm.
not built a great blended family, and we're still on the journey. But here's the thing that we've come to understand about our marriage and how to prioritize is that a marriage is made up of two great forgivers and great apologizers.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that our children, even in our blended family, they know that one of the best things that we could have done for them and that we really do for them is modeling a godly marriage.
Right.
And so we try to be very intentional about sowing into our own marriage. Third point I want to make sure that I share is that you got to stay away from using the D word.
Mhm. Right.
What's the D word? That's divorce. You can't use the D word when it gets tight or when it gets hard.
Mhm.
You can't ask your spouse to choose between you and the children. You can't ask your parent to choose between them and the spouse. You can't do that. And finally, if you're going to sow into your marriage, you have to make the decision that this marriage is going to be, your last marriage. That I'm not looking for, oh, I've got an ace up my sleeve or there's something else coming.
Mhm.
But you've got to be very intentional about sowing into your marriage so that you can reap the benefits of the seeds that you've sown into your marriage.
Right. And some people say that the honeymoon for a blended couple or step couple doesn't come at the beginning of the marriage, it comes at
Yeah.
the end. So it's once the kids grow up and they get out of the
Hmm.
house and you're empty nesters. And I know a couple like that. They live here in Florida, and
Hmm.
they married when their kids were teens, and now all the kids are gone and grown, and they are enjoying the honeymoon
Yeah.
empty nest
Yeah.
phase of their marriage. So the last rest stop as you're on this journey to becoming a successful blended family is the rest stop where you need to share co-parenting roles with your child's biological parent or their
Hmm.
step parent. So what this means is that wherever you are in this journey, if you are the former spouse, if you are the bio parent, if you're the step parent, you need to share roles. So this is really going to be the responsibility of the bio parent.
Hmm.
You have to make sure that you are sharing your power with your
Mm.
spouse. You need to make sure that when you leave the home, you're making sure you talk to the kids. Hey, Miss Shannon is going to be in charge while I'm gone. I've
Yeah.
asked you to do A, B, and C, and she's going to make sure that you do that. So I need you to respect her and do what she asks you to do. I'm giving her the authority to do whatever, implement a consequence, whatever it is. But you have to empower that step
Mm.
parent to be able to share the co-parenting role. The other thing is, like I said, allow the stepchild to set the pace of the relationship. You got to ask your stepchild, how are you feeling about this? How should I introduce you when we go out in public? I have a friend, her former partner got married, and her son didn't have the best relationship with his stepmom and growing up. And the stepmom would introduce him as her child when they were in
Mm.
public. And that offended him, and that offended the bio mom. So it may sound noble because, oh, she was just trying to, make him feel like he was part of the family. Well, it also made him feel like he was being disloyal to his biological
Mm.
mom.
It's tough.
So you got to let the child set the pace of the relationship. You got to ask them, hey, how would you like me to introduce you when we're in public? It's just a conversation. Also, don't use your kids as a weapon to manipulate or control situations. Um, this is one thing I get working at Family Life Blended is that how can I get my ex, or how
Mm.
can I do this? Well, you can't. But don't use your kids to try to get back at the other home. And also, you've heard this term maybe, place the children first. We put the kids first, and that sounds good on t-shirts and on social media and everything.
Yeah.
But the only time children should come first between two adults is when those two adults are no longer in a relationship.
Mm.
Meaning, for Roosevelt with his children's mothers, that's the only time children should come first, is when he's communicating with them.
Yeah.
Okay. But when he and I are communicating as husband and wife, and the parents of our children, the kids don't come first,
Right. Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Our marriage comes
Hmm.
first in
Hmm.
this home, right? And so that's the only time it should come, that children should come first, is between the parents who are no longer together. And then lastly, just make room for one-to-one parenting and child interaction. As a step parent, I need to make sure that this man right here has time with his children when I'm not around,
Yeah.
and I should be okay with that.
I think I want to say this. Don't move that, because we talk about sharing co-parenting roles. The reality is, like I said, we didn't, do it perfectly, and I think that's probably an area in which, if I could rewind the tape and do it over again, I could have done a better job at empowering Shannon. When I would leave the home, or anything, or we'd be out, or whatever the case may be. I think I could have done a better job of that. And so, while we may be here on this platform sharing this information, just know that, what, we've not dotted all of our I's across all our T's. There are several instances that if we had time, we could name them all. You guys could write a book about it, but we've messed up. But here's what I love, and it's what I said early on. That we have Jesus Christ as the center, and so forgiveness has been made available for us. And so, you know, again, these four major takeaways that we shared as far as rest stops are concerned. Now, I want to give you some takeaways for the road, and we're going to try to wrap this up. Number one, as a step parent, it is your responsibility to honor your spouse and share disagreements in private. Honor your spouse and share disagreements in private. So, for example, if Shannon and I have a disagreement about my older daughter or my oldest son, we just smile and grin and just, okay, cool, high five. But then we get back to our room, then we can talk about, okay, hey, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm really not feeling the way that kind of approach that. And I can share my side. But, and in doing so, it allows you to reclaim the step role or step calling. The second thing is bio parent to step parent. Respect your spouse and take a risk to make them and your marriage a priority. Share co parenting with them. Grandparents,
It's good.
don't pick sides between your child and his or her spouse or partner. Share your love and gifts with all grandkids. Like, you can,
Yep.
as comical as it may sound, you can't be around here, just because you have a blended family, or you have step grandkids, you can't treat them any differently,
Right.
because here's the thing: while you may think they don't realize it, kids pick up on things
They do.
more than you realize
Mhm.
it. Okay. And if you're a grandparent and that's the way you're expressing your love, then they will pick up on it. Okay. It's called being fair. Fourthly, as a single parent, speak well of your child's other bio parent and step parent. Cooperate as much as you can. Give your child freedom to love without regret or guilt. And this is huge. We know several people who, they're single parents, and when they're talking to their child, they talk negatively about that child's father, about that child's mother.
Mhm.
And when you do that, you don't realize that not only the immediate negative impact, but it's like taking a pebble and throwing it in the ocean. It has an immediate impact, but then it has a ripple effect.
Right.
Because believe you me, that child will remember what you said about his or her bio parent. And finally, as an adult step kid, here's what you have to remember: give yourself permission to grieve, yet open your heart to your step parent. And I think what happens oftentimes is that the older you get, people have a tendency to think, oh, well, you know what? You should be over it.
Mhm.
But the reality is that anytime you are changing the dynamics of a family, that's grief. And so you have to, as an adult step kid, give yourself time to grieve, but also open your heart to the step parent.
Right. Great takeaways. Great takeaways as you guys are trying to go back to your homes and you want to see how you can implement some of these things. But I want you to remember where you start.
Mhm.
We're going to start at humility. Scripture says that in James 4 and 6, but God gives more grace. He says, God opposes the proud,
Mhm.
but gives grace to the humble. And you need the grace of God to be able to build a successful blended family. You cannot do it without his grace. I
Mhm.
know it.
Mhm.
But don't allow your pride to keep you stuck in the step family forest. You know, you can be wandering around just like the Israelites in
Mhm.
the forest because you don't recognize the challenges that you're supposed to meet when you blend a family. Some
Mhm.
of you think that because you're having so many issues that it's foreign, that oh, it
Mhm.
shouldn't be this way. No, step families are hard, and some of the things you're experiencing, it's normal. Just know that there's nothing quite unique about your story that another step family hasn't walked in.
Right.
But there is grace
Mhm.
for this space of
That's
being
good.
a blended family. And if you're a step parent, you have a true calling. You just have to ask God to show you what is it that you've called me to do in loving these children,
Mhm.
even if I didn't bear them, right?
Right.
So we are so thankful that we're able to share just a little bit about being a successful blended family. We definitely have not arrived,
Yeah.
but we have lived through some things. So we hope this has been helpful. We hope that you're able to take these takeaways for the journey ahead and know that you are capable of making this marriage your last marriage and you are capable of being a blended family.
Exactly. You guys have a great rest of the day, and we pray in God's best for you.
Yep.
Bye.